Good afternoon. I'm Markus Dreßen from the publishing house Spectre Books from Leipzig. It's in the east part of Germany, and in this year Spectre Books, the publishing house, is celebrating its 25th anniversary, and so I thought it would be good to start with the beginning and give an overview of our practice, and I will have some expertise, also experiences, what we have in all these years with publishing and printing, designing. Yeah, I studied graphic design at the Academy of Fine Arts in Leipzig, at die Hochschule für Grafik und Buchkunst. And I'm teaching since 2006 graphic design in the first and second year. And so this is a bit my background from which I'm talking. I will have a prepared text. It might be boring in the afternoon. I hope you have a lot of coffee drinking in the pause. I hope, but I want to be bit more safer what I want to say to you, and yeah, I bought some books, so these books I also have in the presentation so that you know what size this book is. I thought it would be good to bring it with me. Yeah, and now I start. Okay. Yes, designing alliances, publishing research and independent practice in the field of art. In 2001, together with Anne König and Jan Wenzel, I began publishing the magazine Spectre Cut and Paste. It was our first attempt of publishing, conceived as a kind of permanent workshop. Within its pages, we explored many of the themes that continue to interest us today. It was here that we learned and navigate between artistic and editorial practice and to develop our own formats by combining text, images, and typography. At the same time, it became a space for us to investigate and the content-driven dimensions of visual design. Between 2001 and 2004, we published 3 issues. I will then show a number of double-page spreads from the magazine that reflect our approach in the interweaving of text and visual design. I then show a number of double spreads. I would now like to turn to the book liner notes, Conversations on Making Books, Leipzig, published in 2008, which can be seen here as starting point of our publishing house, Spectre Books. It was edited by Anne König, Jan Wenzel, Lina Grumm, and myself. The book brings together a series of conversations, dialogues, and reflections on the practice of making books. It focuses on the publications developed in the context of the Leipzig Academy of Visual Arts. But rather than defining a common style or a school, it reflects the diversity of approaches and attitudes towards book design. At its core, liner notes ask us a simple but fundamental question. What does it mean beyond typographic rules to make a book today? The contribution explores the through detailed discussion of specific projects reflecting on processes of editing, designing, and producing books. In this sense, the book is also kind of a self-reflection, a book about books, assembled from within ongoing practice and intended to generate ideas from future publications. Oh, I go a bit faster. The book is organized like a workshop, so there are these days where we just focus on several specific topics. Like, for instance, on day 7, the authorship. Or typography. Building on these, I would like to introduce the 12 thoughts of the publisher's work, noted in 2015 together with my colleague Anne König and Jan Wenzel, co-founders of Spectre Books. Working on books means turning them into objects that already reflect their content in their design and their materiality. Objects that are singular and recognizable as humans by their appearance. Working on books is a task that goes far beyond the field of design. We call it work on the medium book. Editorial questions and questions of design cannot be separated here because making books is always about giving content a form. To make them readable, giving them both an intellectual or a sensual presence. That is the work that needs to be done. The publishing house, or more precisely the publishers, are the ones who organize this working process. That's why I always came back to this question in my lecture, how to organize the working process on a book, because only from the interplay of different actors a book is produced in the end. Before you think about how to design books, it is important to agree on the way how to design the working process. The first task of the publisher is circle around the present. First of all, the work of a publisher is a quest, where one to look on one's action from outside. One would describe a scheme or movement similar to the set of Claude Shannon's mouse Theseus executed in the maze. The publisher's strongest impulse is the desire to make the fleeting present visible and legible. Now and now and now. Books are traces of this exploratory movement. The second task of the publisher is organizing the community of producers. According to Jean-Luc Godard, if you want to make a film, you need 2 people. The same goes for books. This means that only absolutely cannot work on a book alone. Books derive from a collective process in a cooperation with others, just like a film or a play. Organizing the community of producers is the task of the publisher. It is the publisher who brings the different actors together. The publisher ensures that everyone involved in the book production enters into a cooperative process of exchange. To do so, the publisher needs ingenuity, intuition, and cunning, a feel of chances as well as the ability to deal with uncertainties. Let's start together. How to start working on a book, not lonely, but by withdrawing, burying oneself into the chamber, but by speaking, communicating. Books are from beginning contact with the world of fiction, again in perspectives. But how do you create space for a common work, an open space that takes each actor in the role of individuality seriously? It is important to start together. It's about to share a process of reflection and decision-making. This often creates a shared responsibility. Perhaps this is the best way to set the stage for a joint reflection, a starting point for a shared story. When we work on a book, we make every effort to get everyone together at a table as early as possible. Often there's only a first idea, there is a raw material, everything should be as flexible as possible. We do not understand the work on a book as an assembly line, not as a linear process. The classical approach follows a clear chronologically. An author or editorial team will take care of the manuscript, the images, and supported by the editor. Only when this operation is completed, the material went to the graphic designer. He works out a layout and takes care of the typesetting. This process can be liquefied if you work together from the beginning, when all elements can react to each other. The form of the text reacts from the design, the concept of the pictures reacts on the text. Only this interaction makes the artist, makes the book at the end. Jan Wenzel and I deceived the concept of the publication Constantine, together with the artist Olaf Nicolai in 2008. When everyone speaks to each other of the beginning, a common idea of form arises, to which an element can be adapted. A wind wheel which stood in a former industrial hall, a steam power plant, and was driven by a motor instead of an energy production, we have nowadays power consumption. It should be a small publication, 28 pages, usually short text, some exhibition views. But these publications are very hard to sell because their content, their context is difficult for the reader to access. There is a lack of knowledge about the intellectual connections the artist has gone through in the conception of this work. At the exhibition, this can be fulfilled by a museum guide. In a case of a publication, this must be done by the publisher, together with the artist, the author, and the designer in order to open the large audience. Cover, a constellation of terms. Inside, a collage of images and text references. Figure geometric. The technical form is related to the artistically designed form as a sculpture. Constantin Brancusi, avant-garde in the 30s, spanning out the technical form, accelerating the art. The centerfold in space of transformation in the 1990s, industrial spaces are transformed into cultural places. Improvisation on polycentric authorship. Working on books, as I have just described, take place on an intersection of several actors. There are more than just one an author. Different perspectives, individual work and experiences, and the taste and the opinion, which is always something subjective, came together here. The subjectivities add up. What is necessary to be able to participate in such a workflow? Above all, improvisational skills. A virtue in the industrial age was discipline. Means punctuality, accuracy, and reliability. But these capabilities are no longer sufficient in the post-industrial present. What is needed today is improvisation. And we should make a very clear distinction here. The sociologist Richard Sennett speaks of flexibility. That is a virtue of the service society and deliver what the client wants. One is available, adaptable, guided by outside and responds to different requirements. Situationally correct. Improvisation is something else. Improvisation means that each of the actors leads in a certain situation. Similar to jazz, when a common motive is taken up and vary by individual soloists. So that I can be further developed in the game. When it comes to making books, improvisation also means acting at the moment. Improvisation means to give it into disagree, set up roles and undermine them, to show oneself and to hide oneself, to deliver punctuality and to have the courage, if necessary, to throw all appointments over the pile. In order to knock out more time, improvisation means acting reflexively, that affirmatively and the critical at the same time. It means over and over again to explore one's own scope for action in intersection with others. Flexibility is just a contemporary expression of discipline. Flexibility means to submit to the changing circumstances, not to the one fixed rule. Improvisation is an alternative model of social practice, a field of open rules. Improvisation means nothing more than being able to act without a plan. Not thinking about how it works perfectly, but confidently dealing with uncertainties. Improvisation concentrates a maximum of knowledge in every moment. An important aspect is, in order to be able to improvise, consciously practice situations in order to quickly understand the possibilities of action which one has in particular situations. This means observing and reflecting on one's own work all the time. As a publisher, we have built something like an ensemble in the last 10 years, designing 20 years, designing artists, authors, translators with them whom they work together again and again. The better you know yourself, the more openness is possible in the process, because you share the responsibility for this process. Camera Austria is an association that both publishes a bilingual journal dealing with photography and organizing an art gallery dedicated to photography under the same name. The quarterly magazine Camera Austria International was founded in 1980, but the photographers Manfred Willmann and Sergi Ferrugia, as well as Christine Frisingelli in Austria and the city of Graz. But Camera Austria is much more than that. It is an international network of photographers and photo theorists. It is a platform and a place of self-empowerment. The exhibition hall and this magazine are self-organized and independent. They serve as a location for communication and self-manifestation of the photographers' network. In 2018, the Museum of Modern Art in Salzburg opened an exhibition on the more than 30 years of practices of Camera Austria. The difficulty was to establish communication between the organizers of the exhibition hall, the magazine, current and former editorial staff, the exhibited photographers, and the curators team of the Museum of Modern Art in Salzburg. In addition, Camera Austria, as a self-organized institution, the curators and editors could not rely on well-run archive. The book was divided into 8 thematic chapters. It was the idea of the publisher and me as a designer to give the magazine Camera Austria more visibility in the publication. In addition to the fold-out panels depicting the exhibited works of the artists, title and double pages from Camera Austria have now been edited. The third task of the publisher: study the medium. A library is for a publisher what a dictionary is for the translator. An opportunity to understand even the smallest conceptual difference and certain variations of possibilities and linguistic expression. When he grabs particularly books from the shelf, it's often not to read them, but rather to study how they are made. This kind of research has multiple stages. At the beginning, the pure materiality of the books concern him first and foremost. Perhaps he wonders in the back of his mind how a certain book, or once already in production, should be designed. What is the proper format? Should it be thick or thin, big or small? What kind of building should it have? What type of paper? To reach the decisions, it's helpful to look at several different books at once, to page through them, to lay them next to one another on a table, Another question is how certain content can be organized on a page of a book. How can be the book contents organized to compel the reader? In what way can the different parts be placed into a context? How can they arrange in order to guide the eye across the leaf? The larger the format, the more complex the relationship between the main body of the text, footnotes, translations, illustrations, and captions can be. And last but not least, all the books offer helpful visual aids of their choice of font and questions of typographical detail. The publisher carries his library in his hand. He knows his toolbox. He knows that books are always made from other books, and that the book's use values lies not least in the delivering ideas of new books. So, visit library. I look into the large reading room of the German National Library in Leipzig. When I talked about improvisation in the previous point, how to interact with others to go to the new form of the book, then I described the interplay between people. But there is also the interplay with the medium and with the history of the form of the medium. This history of form is also a point that you can allude to, an aspect that plays an important role in your own work. Going back, understanding the possibilities of a form of the medium, take up the form, interpret, play with these shapes. To think historically, to use the entire history of the medium is an important aspect of my work in books. That's where my enthusiasm of libraries came from, because they are the places deal with the history of the medium. Seeing how the era of the pages was dealt with the early days of the printed book. Here's an example that I discovered in an exhibition in the Lenin Library in Moscow. The example clearly shows which source and inspiration the work already done on the medium book represents. The book is also a time machine and offers opportunities to fall back and improvise in a way, as if they threw the balls with someone who lived 300 years ago. During my studies at the Leipzig Academy of Fine Arts, Holmer Feldman and Andreas Grahl collected the legacy of a lost epoch. These objects collected in the years between 1993 and 1998 culminated in a collection of ready-mades and more or less conceptual works of art in the archive, which was first presented to the public in the cellar of Leipzig factory in 1989. For this purpose, inner history was written to critically questions and represented eight of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century. My task was to give the retrospective form to this extraordinary archive from the perspective of the coming epoch of the time of publication. I went to the library and found a publication in the Leipzig University, in the library of the Medical Institute of Gynecology. The extraordinary large and above all representative book designed and printed by John Baskerville in Birmingham in the years of 1774. An extraordinarily large and above the all represents, okay, I had this read before, an object from another time. I will now show you 15 double pages, spreads from the book, that art collection, that cabinet of Robin Hayes, and the legacy of fiction and art collectors. It's now rediscovered. The art of the 20th century. The collection itself is a post-historical fiction. It was created in the mid of the 90s by the artist Holmer Feldman and Andreas Grahl. It first exhibited in the basement of the Discourse Factory in Leipzig. And Roman Hayes is not the real collector, but a narrative figure, a kind of future art detective. His cabinet of 20th century art plays with the idea that objects without an obvious function from our present could one day be recognized as art. In this way, the project reflects critically on how we define art, history, collecting, and such cultural memory. In this sense, the Cabinet of Raymond Hayes is more than a book. It is a living artistic project that blurs the line between fiction and reality, between collecting and storytelling, and between the archival and the imaginative. The book, designed by myself in 1999, was the first to carry the Spectre Books logo on its cover. It functions both as a catalogue raisonné and as an independent work of art, documenting the fictional collection while the extended is in the narrative. The collection has been shown in a various exhibition contexts from Berlin and Leipzig, Mönchengladbach and Poznan, and the book now appears in a newly expanded edition, including 4 additional works and the photographs of the installation at the Museum Abteiberg in Mönchengladbach in 2018. This is publishing. I have to speed up. Okay. The first task of the publisher continuing the book medium, possibilities for expression among the tasks for the publisher. I go here. The designer as a reader. In the last 30 years, the role of the designer has become more important. The designer has become more visible in characterizing the perception of the book as much as the author of the artist. More and more, the designer has become co-author and antipole. He takes an attitude toward the material and he deals with. This attitude becomes visible in the design. The designer is an interpreter, sometimes a critic who can create proximity or distance through the handling and the material, through the way he reflects it, through its artistic implementation. He always leads a substantive discussion with the material. One could say the designer is the reader of the book who transforms its reading into a performative act, showing others how to understand the book. Next book I show is Axel Dossmann and Susanne Regner, Fabrikation eines Verbrechers, a fabrication of a felon, the criminal case of Bruno Lütke and the media history. In the 1950s, Bruno Lütke was erroneously considered the greatest mass murderer in criminal history. The case was kept secret by the Nazis, but since the 1950s, it was provided material for sensationalist media, revelations, and film dramatizations. The protagonists have relied on the truth of the archive materials, medical opinions, and police procedural reports, photographs, live cards, and Lütke's death certificate. The book examines the scientific and popular imagination of evil, conducting a historical survey of the media and charting his history of knowledge from the 19th century up to the present day. It includes analysis and stereotypical and racist conceptions of humankind, visualization of the criminal as a type, and the production of truths and trophies, and how German mass media struggled to come to terms with the country's Nazis past. In this publication, Fabrikation eines Verbrechers, my task was to present a scientific way of thinking that sticks closely to the material, and the theoretically and methodologically transparent educating our view of a contemporary history, politics, and aesthetics. It works together with the term of the writers for many years and was involved in the concept right from the start. Image strategies were developed together. Photographs were commissioned and instructed, and the book was mounted side by side with the two authors together at my desk. This is easy. The publisher has to say no. The most important, the most difficult aspect in publishing is to say no. writes Christoph Keller. Saying yes is the easiest thing in the world and will make you loved by everybody. Saying no is essential to a mission. If you want to say one single thing, you will need to say no to 100 other things. The work of a publisher is critique in the most elementary form. He's like a doorman and ever would like to enter the space of the book, the first to get past to him. The sixth task of the publisher is say yes. Editing, layout draft, the first phase of the editing, the second phase of editing, image proofs, the dummy, the print ready, the second print ready, the final print approval, the notices, and the unbound edition, the finished book. Argumenting with materiality. As an important aspect of any book, its material presence is not as a screen that can retrieve data, but an object that can be touched tactilely, but its physical nature, surfaces and quality, weight and format. With the materiality, one can work consciousness while making books. It is the most immediately experience that someone who accesses a particular book can do. Designing rehearsals and conversations, a Bauer lesson. This is a book done not by me, it's by my colleague Felix Salu from Amsterdam. It's of the basic design lessons at the Bauers Dessau. I go very quickly through it. It's playing with material, different kind of papers, fold-out pages, and showing perfectly the material of the students at that time. The seventh task of the publisher is printing. Printing is the performance of a book. Similar to the performance of a composition, the printing of a book is also a process that never leads to the same result twice. Each reception has slight deviations. The printing process depends on too many intertwining factors. The printing press, the expertise of the printer, the paper quality, the temperature in the printing room. The printing was attributed to the magical arts for a long, long time. Provocative. The printing house is as important as the designer. Producing books is only half of the way of the job. To bring these books into the world and to distribute them into the other, what is the book then? Is it the object that can take into his and her hands? Or does the object only first become a book once in its surface in many places and can be appreciated by different people? As an articulation that exists in the specific number of identical copies in bookshelves, on desks, on night tables, and public libraries. The publisher is responsible for the book coming into the world. Only through this distribution, does it really become a book. Beforehand, it is only a shadow. To stay at the book fair, stand for days, and talk through them from morning till night from many different people about many different topics, authors, designers, exhibitions, circulations, figures, discounts, future plans, and political disputes, about temporary injunctions, reprints, paper varieties, and review copies. This is the market, a large self-manifestation of society, a place of exchange, and the publisher stands in the center. The 10th task of the publisher is to sustain yourself. A publishing house is unlike any other business. It is the intellectual labor and an entrepreneurial game. Profit and squander. A press has a self-imposed mandate to sustain itself. This means to be profitable enough to newly finance its highly complex program every year. That's difficult enough. The goal is economic sustainability and intellectual expansion. The 11th task of the publisher is new receptions, and I skip. And the 12th task of the publisher is not the press. It is continuing the work at the publishing house. A publishing house is more than the sum of its books. It is a space where a variety of ideas and characters come together and form a new content. To design this force field is the publisher's action mission. Henri Lefebvre solidified the formal distinction of a publishing process by using an analogy of cities. And although every publisher produces books, publishers differentiate themselves from one another as strongly as cities do. In the atmosphere, the size, the liveliness, and the pace they produce according to, as well as what is possible in place now and in the future. For an exhibition in Lisbon in 2006, Roger Willems published a book titled Book Make Friends for an exhibition of his publishing house, Roma Publications. That was a manifesto for me at that time. At the end of my talk, I will now show you a variety of images that tell the story of It's a Book, the annual gathering of independent publishing projects and publishers, which in the 2026 will take place for the 16th time. It's a Book was founded in 2010 and on the initiative of Johannes Kirsten, Anne König, and Jan Wenzel, and was organized 4 times in a row by Spectre Books in cooperation with the Central Theatre in Leipzig. In 2014, the publishing house passes on the hosting role the students of the book design, graphic design program at HGB Leipzig, under the supervision of myself. And Albrecht Gäbel joined the team in 2015, and Sabine Schmidt in 2016. Since then, the 3 of us have defined the conceptual and content-related direction, supported the students, and supervised the various areas of responsibility. Since 2017, It's a Book has also received financial support from the Leipzig Academy of Fine Arts, and in 2026, the Open Book Society took over the patronage and also organized the last It's a Book, happened last week. I skip. These are moments from over 12 years of organizing It's a Book in Leipzig. And I want to invite you also for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Markus. It was very nice, very interesting, and very beautiful. Now a question.
Yeah,
so,
please.
En français, en anglais, just go for it. We don't have the luck every day to have someone from Leipzig in Metz. Question? Une question. Vous savez que Leipzig, c'est quand même vraiment le mythe des mythes pour les éditeurs. Où c'était, enfin, où ce sera. En tout cas, c'est vrai, Leipzig, c'est... Just to pronounce Leipzig is kind of scaring. Alors, la question.
Hi, I'm wondering how many books you make a year and how you organize to have economic stability at Spectre.
In the past, of course, it was growing through the years. We started with 2 books a year in 2008 and now ending at the moment with 70 or 80 books a year. And of course, I'm not designing 70 or 80.
70.
Yes, yes. I'm not designing them all. I'm designing only a little, but I'm very, very happy to have a group of friends, good designers, students from Leipzig and elsewhere, and a good network. And I'm always happy to work with good designers with Spectre books. And the economic thing is very difficult, of course. Mostly the commissioners, authors have already a plan, have already a finance support from an institution or a foundation, and then we discuss what it needs to bring it to the market, to bring it to the print house. What I want to say is, for Spectre books, always it's not only bringing the books to the print house; it's always bring the books in the shelves of the people. That is the work of a publishing house. Yeah. I hope I answered. Yeah.
Yes.
Une question ici.
Maybe I read too fast in the end. Before too slowly and then too fast.
It's okay, it's okay. It's how we flip a book.
Yeah.
Hello. Sorry. I was wondering if... Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Hello. You said something, I think it was in the second part, the second rule, I think. You said something about the editor acting similarly to a museum guide, and in order to appeal to larger audiences. And I wondered if you could maybe elaborate a little, because I thought that was an interesting point of view. There's always this, those two possibilities. Either you decide to appeal to a niche audience, or you decide to try to guide the viewer, the reader.
I have not a clear answer, but I try to. The role Jan, Anne and I play in the publishing house, it's nothing that you can really study or train. There is no apprenticeship for being a publisher in Germany. So people come from very different schools or with different practices. And my personal role as a designer is maybe the most clearest in the publishing house. So Jan studied art history and German language, and Anne studied journalism and sociology. And then there was a great interest in, of course, full bookshelves and big interest in books. And Anne works first as a journalist in a radio station and makes radio. And there was also implied that she was doing radio plays for 1 or half an hour, and that is very close to the practice of bringing something to stage or bringing something to the audience. So the way of producing and editing is already there, and Jan was in between working as a fine art, as an artist and making photographies, and there was also an idea of communicating about it. And so I think when you make exhibitions like a curator, there's also the step from the exhibition to the exhibition catalog is not so far. So you have to think of a book as a room, and you make the exhibition and the content for the exhibition space and for the book space. So it's different, but very close.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci Markus, merci beaucoup.